All right, so I thought it would be really fun to start out with a little floral study. Now you could do these on canvases, or you can do them on something like these acrylic papers. Now this one, I like just the size of 6x6. It feels like it's a little bit of a study. It's not a full-fledged painting, and they're just 6x6 acrylic paper. Now I totally gesso these, and then also know that you could sell these as prints. So I just get a little artist tape. I've taped it to a board, and I'm just on this easel that tilts a little bit up. And I've pulled out, and these are my photos of just florals, and this is kind of a small image. You'll have a bigger one. But just this purple guy here, I'm just gonna do a floral study, just of one flower. How would I shape it? What colors would I use? Play around. And you know, and sometimes I might even do these 2, 3, 4 times until I get something that I really like, or even change up the colors. Like it might be purplish here, but maybe I want a pink one or a yellow one, and just play with my color palette. So then I take out colors, just kind of identifying, and I kind of saw this ultramarine blue, the light, and then the luminous violet. I took those out, I put them on my palette. You'll see I have my palette kind of at the ready over here. And then I also took the greens. Now for some reason I can't find my green gold heavy body, but so I just put a little fluid out there, and then I took this light green yellow hue, and then the background, you know, I figured teal's always safe. I just put it on my palette. And Titan Buff, because I like those together. Now you might think that, you know, you put all this paint on there, what if you don't use it to a little piece of paper? And my kind of thing is I will use it. I'll just put it on another sample or on a canvas. But if I don't have it out, I'm not going to reach for it. So it's a personal Donna thing. It doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. And I have no expectations on what your comfort level with doing things is. So just play around. So now the first thing I'm going to do as I've taped this down is I'm going to gesso the background. So just get a nice loose brush, Simply Simmons brush. It's kind of floppy. I'm going to take the gesso, just a nice coat. And I'm not really worried about getting paint on the board, and the tape kind of seals out the edges. So I'm just getting this surface less porous. Do you have to gesso it? No. I just like the blendability when I paint on a gesso surface. So that's again another thing that I love. Do you have to use gesso? Could you have gone in and just primed this with a coat of red, and maybe your underpainting is red? Certainly you could. All right, so I'm just gonna give that's a nice, I do err on the side of a thicker coat than thinner, but you know, that's just me. I live to excess. All right, so I'm not even gonna let that dry really. I don't mind painting into the wet gesso at all. So I'm just gonna pick a brush. My usual go-to is a square brush. But I have several brushes here, and these are my always go-to brushes. I use these, I keep them clean, they're ready to go again. And they're usually Catalyst brushes. There's a couple Simply Simmons brushes in there. And I do like a combination of a filbert and a bright. So I will, instead of cleaning my brush, sometimes just change my brush because it's a little bit more convenient. So I've got my picture, it's just sitting here. And I can probably put it underneath there. No, I can't, I gotta fold it. So that you can see just what I see. And it's not a literal interpretation for me at all. It's just, maybe this side. It's just a reference. I'm just looking at it just color-wise even, because I could make a flower that totally doesn't look like that type of flower, and for me that's still the same practice. So I'm just gonna go in. I'm gonna start with a little bit of that ultramarine, light ultramarine blue. I know you think it's purple, but I refuse to call it purple. All right, so I'm just gonna go in spatially, and it's as loose and as simple as this. I'm just going in, I'm picking up color. I like these brushes because they're stiff, they don't flop. I can get all the paint color off. And I'm just gonna make that. And while it's still wet, again, I'm not gonna clean my brush. I'm gonna go into a little pink, just to see if I can't get some accent to that. And I could actually change my mind a dozen times while I'm doing these little studies. I'm gonna go into this, just see what I get. I don't really love that, so I'm gonna go into some white, see what I get there. And it's just a bunch of layering. Now I am gonna clean my brush to get some of that gook off, because I think I'm just making mud, but part of that mud is actually becoming part of the color on there. So I'm still okay. This is gonna be a layering back and forth over and over again. And part of the mess that I do make when I do this is also the background at the same time. So I'm laying down this color, just lay it out a little bit more purple around there. Okay, and it's random, it's loose, I have no expectations for what this piece will be. I'm gonna take that brush, put it down, and I'm just gonna take a thinner brush. I do have a line brush in these and I really do like it. It's just this thin one and it's been beaten to hell. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of the gesso into that green gold and I'm just gonna make a stem where I think it's gonna be. And it's a fat stem, it's an ugly stem, it's not pretty whatsoever. Maybe there's a little leafy thing coming off. Maybe there's not. Maybe we're just hacking around. I do want some sap green. Oh, that's nice. A little bit of that light green. Give me 1 second. I'll be back. I'm going to find some sap green. Typically, I would go in with heavy body, but I think I left all of them at the studio the other day. So I'm just really sloppy putting that in. A little bit more of that green gold. I'm not even making anything. It's just real loose. All right, now I'm gonna go in with the background. I'm just gonna put my brush down. I'm not even cleaning that. And take another of the flat brushes and I'm gonna go in with a little of that bright aqua green, which is the best color, and some Titan Buff. I just like that. And I'm gonna blend into that flower, at least that first swipe through. I might do this over and over again as well. So I'm just gonna get a little bit of that, a little bit of this. I also will throw in some white as I'm doing it. I feel I want a little bit more color variation. I'm picking up other colors, so I'm making new colors. Get a little bit of that. I'm putting heavy bodied white in there. It's just super loose. Base layer down, and again I'm just going to keep playing with color. I've still got that color on my brush. It's still not dry. On my floral I'm going into the heavy bodied. I usually go into gesso when I want something looser, or clearly the gesso the background, and then I'll go into the heavy bodied when I want something a bit more creamier. And this is a loose abstraction. This is not I'm painting that flower for real. I can play around with size and shape and then again come back with the background colors and shape it back in again. I'm thinking maybe even coming in with a filbert brush at this point, which is that rounded tip, and just adding some more of the shape that would naturally be occurring. I go back and forth. If I don't like it, I change it up. In here, I'm just kind of spread. Yeah, just see if that just gives a little more element of highlighter, darkness. Have the flower centers. call this a floral study. I'm looking at a flower and I'm painting it. Now I'm not painting exactly what I'm seeing. I'm painting kind of what inspires me. Now I'm gonna do this several times just to change it up and kind of get comfortable with the practice of painting these flowers. And I might just make a series of this type flower and changing up the colors. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna show you what I mean by that. And I want you this week to kind of go ahead, pick as many flowers as you want. Just one flower in isolation to do a floral study. Now I think a floral study could be as many as 300 to 500. You kind of decide what the number is for you. And eventually you might even want to put these on canvas if you're feeling comfortable. I'm going to keep all of my study components onto paper. So I'm just going to take this off, just show you. And then, you know, ideally this can be sold as an image made into prints. And I do kind of like the crisp edge you get when you pull the tape off. And I will sign this. I'm just going to wait for it to dry a little bit more. And there you've got your first print. Now don't be surprised, and it's kind of love by the luck staying there. Don't be surprised if it warps a little bit. Paper by nature, once it gets wet, it's going to warp a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to keep the colors that I already have out on my palette. And I'm going to take some more art tape, some more paper, and just tape another one on here. Now I'm using an easel that tilts it so I can have it upright. I personally like that. I like working not flat. And the reason why I don't like working flat is it feels like I'm looking at it with the wrong perspective. And this easel is not necessarily straight up. It's almost, I mean, flat. It's maybe at a, I would say perhaps like a 20-degree angle. And I don't know math, so take that for what it's worth. This is artist tape, tape formulated specifically to pull away. And I would be lying to you if I told you I wasn't nitpicky about getting this straight. So I might take a couple seconds as I'm putting this on to make sure it is straight, or at least even across my border. That's the type A of me. So I'm just gonna go ahead, tape this down, and then I'm going to paint another study, and I'm just going to record it. Now this time I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to paint it like I normally would. I'm doing the same exact thing. I'm just going at it a second time. I might change up my perspective or change up the angle. I already have those colors out, so it would be wasteful not to use them. And we'll just see where that leads me.